In Demo 3 and Demo 4, you have seen how to use native JS code to prevent default behaviors of an HTML element, and how to stop propagation from child element to parent element. Basically, we're using two methods, event.preventDefault and event.stopPropagation. Although we can do this easily by adding the two statements into our method, it would be better if the methods can be purely about data logic, rather than having to deal with DOM event details. To address this problem, Vue.js provides event modifiers for v-on, or in our example, we're using the shorthand at. So at, it's the same thing. There are 6 event modifiers, but today I'm only going to talk about 2 of them. .prevent, which corresponds to the .preventDefault method in native JS, and .stop, which corresponds to the .stopPropagation in native JS code. So let's take a look at this example here. In this example, first I'm going to print the value of number. As you can see here, the number is connected to the data object I defined in the constructor of this view. Right now it's 0, so if I refresh, it's 0. No surprise. The next part is a button inside the div. So to make sure you see the div, I add a border, write a border to it. So this is the div, the parent div, and inside there is a button. So if I click this button, function2 gets called. Right now it's empty. If I click this red box, the div, function1 gets called. All right, so right now if I click, nothing happened. What I want to do is very self-explanatory, right? If I click this button, 0 becomes 1, 1 becomes 2. It's super simple in Vue.js because all I need to do is add one line to function2, right? Because function2 controls this button. What I do is I'm going to modify number. Every time this button gets clicked, we're going to increment 1 to number, right? You only need to modify this number, and the updates will be picked up by the Vue.js, and update will be done automatically. I refresh. If I click, it goes from 0 to 1, 1 to 2, and so on and so forth. Now I'm going to make this thing a little bit interesting. I'm going to move this line, cut, and paste it into function1. So now my question is, if I click this button, increase by 1, what happened? So let me refresh, make sure everything's good. If I press this button, then function2 gets called. But function2 is empty, right? So nothing will happen. So my guess is if I press or click this button, 0 is still 0, right? Is that right? So let's take a look. So if I click, oh, it goes from 0 to 1. Keep clicking. Even though function2, which is the onClick function of button, is empty, right? Well, in fact, if I click any part in this div, in this red box, it has the same effect. Since button is part of this div, so click this button is equivalent to clicking this entire box. For example, here, if I have an image, now clicking this image will also increment this number by 1. That's called propagation, and we do not want that. Okay, this time it's from parent to child, right? It's propagating from parent to child. In the previous example, it's from child to parent. And how can we change this? Now, remember, we can use native JS. So the way we do that is, first, we're going to add a event. So make sure we pass this event to function2. So what we can do here is using event.stopPropagation. So now, if I clean this, okay, refresh this, this time if I click this increase by 1, and the propagation is stopped, so the parent's effect will not be affecting the child. So now if I click, nothing happened. But if I click the parent, it's still increasing. Okay? But remember, as I said, we do not prefer to write it here because that will mess up the logic here. I really want this function to focus on data logic, rather than having to deal with DOM event details. So I'm going to comment out this, okay? And there is a shorthand in Vue, right? It's called .stop. So what I can do here is, here at click .stop. And this is equivalent to this line here, but this is native JS and this is Vue, okay? As you can see, it's very clean. So if you press it, nothing happened, right? Okay, next, what I want to do is the third part. So for now, if I click Google, it goes to Google, right? That's the default behavior of A. Of course, the whole point of having a tag is if it gets clicked, the default behavior is go to whatever you define in href. How do we prevent this? So let's say After you click this, we're not going to jump to google.com. What you can do is the first approach one is using native.js, right? So event.prevent default. Now this will work, right? So if I refresh, now this time if I click Google, well, it's preventing its default behavior. Okay, it gets clicked, function 3 gets called, but we're not going to jump to this Google. And again, we do not prefer to write this code here because this is DOM event handling. Okay, and I don't want to put it together with my data processing. So I'm going to comment out that and using Vue's event modifier. So what I can do is I'm going to use .prevent. Okay, and this is equivalent to using event.prevent default. So if I refresh and click Google, same thing here.